Welcome dear students, this is Dr. Swati Shukla, faculty in the area of business communication at Jaipuria Institute of Management, Lucknow. Today we are going to talk about poor listening habits. Now you may wonder as to why I have chosen this topic. Well, we all want to be successful in our lives, isn't it? But seldom do we realize that most of our problems, be it personal or professional life, can be solved just by being a good listener. So this video today is going to help you identify whether you're a good listener or a poor listener, because we are going to talk about poor listening habits, and if you have any one of them, then believe me, you are yet to become a good listener. So let's start. Before I go on to discussing poor listening habits, I would want to ensure that you know the difference between hearing and listening. So what is hearing? Hearing is simply the act of perceiving sound by the ear. Okay? So unless your hearing is impaired, hearing is something which simply happens. Whereas listening, on the other hand, is something which you consciously choose to do. It requires much more concentration and focus so that your brain can process the meaning from the words and sentences that are being uttered by the speaker. It involves much more involvement on the part of the listener, and it is listening that leads to learning. Please don't forget that. So I hope that you are listening to my video and not just hearing me. Please listen carefully so that you can identify your listening habits and answer questions at the end of the video. Poor listening habits. The first one is based on the difference that I just told you. Hearing but not listening. So if you are hearing only certain facts but are not paying attention to the real meaning that is being conveyed by the speaker, you are just hearing and not listening. Because listening, in order to understand the real meaning, you need to understand the intention with which a certain thing is being told to you. You also need to understand the non-verbal cues that the person is giving. So it involves much more involvement than just hearing certain sounds that fall on your ear. Next is rehearsing. Some people listen until they want to say something themselves. They only listen up to that point. Then they quit listening. Okay? They start rehearsing what they want to speak and wait for the opportunity to jump in and start talking. If you happen to be one such person, again, you're not a good listener. Next one is interrupting. If you have this tendency to interrupt the speaker too often and be impatient to let the speaker complete, if you're not waiting for the complete meaning to be determined and interrupt so forcefully that the speaker has to stop in mid-sentence, then again you are not a good listener. You should try to resist this habit if you have one. Next one is hearing what is expected. People frequently think they heard the speaker say what they wanted them to say, rather than focusing on what they really are saying. On the other hand, there are also people who refuse to hear what they do not want to hear. If you fall in either of these categories, again, you are not a good listener. So next one is feeling defensive. Sometimes listeners turn to be very defensive. This may happen because of many reasons. One of them could be we already formed some preconceived notions about somebody, or we are very apprehensive, or we have some insecurities, due to which we do not allow, even before the speaker starts speaking or starts conversing with us, we feel threatened. We feel as if this person would, whatever he is going to speak, he is going to attack us. As a result, we turn very defensive, and how do we turn defensive? Either we try to stop him from speaking something, or we would try to dominate over that person. If you are doing any of these things, again you are not a good listener. Next is listening for a point of disagreement. There are some listeners seem to wait for the opportunity to disagree or to attack someone. Okay? So, if you are trying to contradict somebody, if you are just looking for an opportunity to contradict somebody, and you are not interested in actually understanding what the person wants to say, then again you are not being a good listener. All you are interested in looking for an opportunity to attack that person or contradict that person. So, you cannot be called a good listener. Okay? Next is call the subject matter uninteresting. If you are a poor listener and you come across a subject that is very well known to you, your natural response would be that, okay, this subject is quite dull, I find the subject very dull and uninteresting, I wish the subject could have been more interesting. And what this person would do, he would lose interest in the conversation or the presentation and would start focusing more on the thoughts stored up in his mind, in his or her mind. Whereas a good listener, on the other hand, would also, to begin with, might feel the same thing. He might feel that, okay, this subject is quite dull, but still he would be more receptive to the speaker with the hope that he may find something useful in what the speaker is about to speak on a particular topic, on a particular subject. Next is become too stimulated. Sometimes when we are conversing with somebody or attending a presentation, and a person says something with which we completely disagree. If we come across this situation, sometimes we tend to get too stimulated and we instantly want to express our disagreement. Instantly we start thinking how we can contradict this person, what are the questions that we can put forth in order to stump that person. Again, if you have this kind of attitude, you are not a good listener. First, allow the person to finish and allow him to hear all the comments that he has to offer. Then later on you can politely disagree. Even if you want to disagree, you can express what are the parts that you agree with and what is your disagreement, no issues. But first you should try and hear out that person completely. Next is fake attention. There are listeners who would try to pretend to be attentive. They will have their eyes on you, but their mind might be elsewhere. They might be thinking about something else. There are also people who are at times so intent on pretending to be attentive that they may not actually hearing what you are saying. Again, you are not a good listener. You cannot be called a good listener. Next one is create distractions. At times we do not realize, but we ourselves become source of distraction. How? One of the ways is that if somebody is talking to us, somebody wants to converse with us, or somebody is making a presentation in front of us, and we begin talking to somebody else instead of listening to that person, then you are becoming a source of distraction. Another common distraction these days is if a person is speaking to you and you become engrossed in your mobile, you are again not being a source of distraction to the person. Even in case of presentations, you must have been advised never to cross the speaker. Why? The reason is simple. You should try to make the listening environment as ideal as possible. Even avoid opening and closing of the doors too frequently. Okay? So we should try to minimize distractions as much as possible for our listening to become effective. Last but not the least is evading the difficult. Many of us have this tendency to want to listen to things which are easy to comprehend. but not be so attentive towards things which are difficult to understand. Why? Because it involves more effort on our part to understand the difficult things, so we shy away from it. Again, if you happen to go to a talk, say, which you found to be interesting for yourself, and as a result you decided to attend that talk, so it is your prime responsibility to try and understand and gain as much as you can from that particular talk. And how can you do so? You can, there is only one way, by being an attentive listener, by trying to understand not just the easy things, but also making an effort to understand the difficult things as well, to the best of your capability. Later on, obviously, you can seek clarifications by communicating with that person. Okay, so with that we come to the end of my presentation. Now what I would want you all to do is, I am going to display a list of questions which I want you to answer after watching this video. I would not want you to go back to the video in order to answer these questions. In first go, you have to answer these questions without going back to the video. It will help you know how good a listener you were while watching this video. Okay? Later on you can cross check your answers, you can go back to the video in order to cross check your answers, but not in the first go. And please watch this video carefully, answer these questions before you come to the next class. Thank you.